There will be a substantial reward for the one who saves the Star Wars franchise. You are free to use any methods necessary, but we want it alive. No disintegrations. I am really kind of disturbingly proud of myself for not having to look up that line and knowing it off the top of my head. Hey! So, Star Wars news! Boba Fett is getting a solo movie. That is not actually huge, shocking news. That was supposedly what Josh Trank was working on back before, Fan Forstic happened, and he was rather swiftly yanked off the franchise. So the idea of a Boba Fett movie is something that's been floating around for a while. So confirmation that it is moving forward is nice to have so that we know what's on the docket and what's coming up, but it is not exactly shocking. The more important piece of news right now is that it has a new director. As I said, it was what Josh Trank was working on before, but now we have James Mangold, most recently director of Logan. So this seems, as far as I can tell, because whenever this kind of news breaks, at best I get a real quick temperature read on how people are reacting, but I don't dive into it a lot because I want, when I shoot these videos, I want to have my own opinions and my own thoughts and don't want it overly shaded by whatever else is being said. But the impression I'm getting is kind of twofold. There seems to be a lot of excitement about this director on Star Wars and a fair amount of ambivalence about this character being made. It's funny. I think there was a time not all that long ago where I think most Star Wars fans would have been clambering over each other with no regard for personal safety at the thought of a Boba Fett solo movie. Now, the shine seems to be off the idea a bit more. Maybe it's because people are looking at Solo and going, I don't know about that. Or they're looking at just how the movie-making process for a decent number of the recent Star Wars movies has gone and don't have a lot of hope in the process churning out what they would want it to be. Or maybe people have just thought about it more, realized that he is a very thinly stretched character who was really only ever popular because he looked really cool, and there isn't a ton of meat there in the first place, unless you put it in the hands of a really talented storyteller, which James Mangold can be. Logan was good. Logan was great, even. Absolutely, don't get me wrong. And he's directed a number of very good films. He's also directed a couple of really forgettable films and at least one truly awful one, at least that I saw. So right now, my bigger concern, and because it's going to get asked otherwise, the one that he directed that I think is awful is Identity. But, some of the other films that he's made that have been good, The Wolverine, because he did do the Logan movie, the Wolverine movie before Logan. He did Walk the Line, which I never saw, but it was up for a bunch of Oscars, so I'd have to assume it was at least competent. He did Night and Day, which was a very forgettable, disposable Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz movies. He did 3:10 to Yuma, which was good. Wasn't amazing, but it was good. Kind of got his bona fides as a Western director at that point. He did Girl Interrupted, he did Copland, Kate and Leopold, which is a goofy movie, but it's fun for what it is. Now, the big headline is actually that James Mangold is directing, but to me, it's actually more important that he is writing and directing, because you look at the guy's filmography, and some of the movies that he's made, he has been involved as a screenwriter as well. Some of them he has not. By and large, his best movies were ones that he also had at least a hand in the screenplay. He had a hand in the screenplay on Logan, Copland, Girl Interrupted. So, and his worst stuff, Identity, and 3:10 to Yuma. Again, it was fine, but it wasn't amazing. It seemed, Night and Day he didn't write, so it seems like when he's done as a director for hire, just to come in and shoot a script, he does okay. When you involve him in the creative process and he has basically a stake in it, he seems to do much better and produce much better work. So they're having him write and direct, and that to me is the biggest saving grace, because I kind of don't care about a Boba Fett movie. At least not overly. I think there are things that you can do and there are ways that you can go that could feasibly be interesting. It doesn't help that they really gave Boba Fett an awful origin story in the Star Wars prequels, and now we're kind of stuck with that. So we need to, like, not deal with that at all. I'm not saying, like, retcon it away, but, like, let's not ever talk about that because it was stupid. But with Boba Fett, what it gives you the opportunity to do is to just further explore areas of the Star Wars universe that only get touched on in the main franchise. And this is the kind of thing that I want out of these side projects. That was one of the things I really liked about Rogue One. It wasn't necessarily dealing with, you know, conflicts that we didn't know went on, but it was dealing with a certain area of the rebellion that we weren't seeing, because we were always seeing the hero pilots and the generals, but Rogue One gave us the on-the-ground, you know, infiltrators, assassins, snipers, the people who, you know, you don't always want to talk about because sometimes they have to do some really unpleasant stuff. So I want to see those kinds of highlights to other areas, and highlighting the bounty hunting element, which gives you more of the underworld stuff, could potentially be really interesting. I do feel like its chance at uniqueness is hampered by the fact that Solo is now out, which at time of recording I haven't seen. I'm actually seeing it later tonight. I'll have the review out tomorrow, which means you get 2 days in a row of Star Wars videos from me. So Solo might already be occupying that niche in terms of exploring the underworld and the criminal element of Star Wars, and depending on how well it's doing it, it could either cause Boba Fett to be redundant, at least tonally, or it could, if it totally blows it, kill the interest that audiences have in that end of things. I think what might be the best thing to do is to actually zero in and do something that hasn't really been done in a Star Wars movie, which is, I would say, make it a character piece. Like, really zero in on Boba Fett as a character and have it focus on him, have it be a really small cast, have it just deal with him hunting one guy. Not like he starts out on a bounty and he uncovers something else and it becomes this grand... No. Just have him a target, have him work at it. Have it be Leon the Professional in space. More or less. I mean, if you want to give him a tag-along, you know, character, someone who, so, you know, he's not just standing there being stoked the whole time, that works. I mean, that in some ways, that's effectively what Laura was in Logan, in addition to, you know, bringing the humanity out of Logan as a character. But she also gave him somebody to interact with where he couldn't just be gruff all the time. If you want to give Boba Fett a character with that function, I'm not saying necessarily actually pair him with a kid, but if you want to give him a character to be with that narrative function, maybe whoever hired him for this bounty insists on tagging along because they need to see this, they need to see for themselves that this was done. That could be a way to do it. But I think really zooming it in, and again, I think James Mangold pretty good fit for that, because when he gets character focused, you get stuff like Walk the Line, you get stuff like Girl Interrupted, you get stuff like Logan. So it is the pairing of filmmaker to material that gives this a heck of a lot more promise than the general notion of a Boba Fett movie. Like, you tell me that, I don't care. You tell me James Mangold is writing and directing a Boba Fett movie, I go, okay, maybe. Could work. Unfortunately, I still have to put an asterisk on even that enthusiasm, because that was kind of my feelings about the idea of a Lord and Miller Solo movie. And no, that's not me saying that whatever they would have made out of their version of Solo was going to be awesome, but it was their involvement that initially gave me any interest in the thing, because they are interesting filmmakers. And we know how that process went down. And it went down similarly to Gareth Edwards working on Rogue One. And as much as I'm yo-yoing back and forth, so like general premise of the movie, not thrilled. This director also working as a writer on it makes me interested. Having seen the process by which Star Wars movies are being made really tumultuously behind the scenes makes me not able to gear up as much enthusiasm as I might have otherwise, because I'm left wondering, is this actually going to be allowed to go through to completion, or are we going to have a clash of visions again, and either the whole thing collapses or he gets yanked off and somebody else does it? I don't know. And I really do wonder about what kind of state the franchise is in as a whole. And this also gives us a bit of a glimpse in terms of the fact, because I think it was kind of an open question in the wake of Solo, whether or not they were going to keep doing a Star Wars story things. I mean, we know that Rian Johnson is working on his own trilogy that is not part of the main numbered saga, so we knew that was going on. And I think I, and probably some other people, had wondered also if that was going to basically completely supplant the side quels. It now appears that's not going to be the case. I do wonder, however, if we're having that and getting episode 9 and working on a Boba Fett movie, I just wonder if it's going to be devaluing it, because I'm starting to get nervous about the whole idea of Star Wars as an annual thing and sort of diminishing returns and related to that. I'm going to stick a pin in that idea, though, because I am pretty sure I'm going to do a whole separate video sort of zeroing in on that topic after I've seen Solo, so I can get a better sense of myself of where things actually are right now in terms of the films that are resulting out of this process that's going on with Lucasfilm as a studio. So, yeah. Table that for another time. But for now, not thrilled by the idea, intrigued by the filmmaker, made nervous by the way the last few of these have gone in terms of a creative process. And that's where I land, in a very conflicted place, which is basically me and Star Wars in a nutshell these days. So, Boba Fett movie, James Mangold writing and directing. What do you think about this news? Good? Bad? Mixed? Like me? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's all the stuff to do. Support me on Patreon if you want to try and help make the show better. I can be followed on Twitter, and I've got a podcast. You can buy t-shirts, and there's other stuff as well. I can't even remember all the stuff I have links to, but those links are all down in the description. So until next time, this council is adjourned.